What's up? What's up? All right, let me say, okay, people, I'm live on YouTube. What's up, buddy? I'm doing good. How's the car, man? I haven't really heard from you, and if you've sent me a message and I missed it, my bad. Let me know, man. Just send me another email. I believe I just responded to something you asked the other day. So, Ben, if you're busy, that's a good thing, right? I mean, heck. All right, let me see. Let me see if I can send everybody the link. I always such a forget to do that. Got to see 4 people in the room. Who else here today? What's up, Tim? There we go. Well, that's a name I don't remember seeing. HPT Garage. Welcome, welcome. What's up, Sky? So I have some things on the table today. Definitely be going over. Different spark plugs, different the new FL5 coil. I'm going to go over a lot of this stuff today. It's going to give a few minutes for people to kind of make their way in there. I'll send you a log in dry weather, but the car is going well, man. Great. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. Always love to hear that, man. Let me see. Is this one? All right, that one's good. I need a bit out. That's like should have just moved this out of the way. Let me heat this up. Try to heat this bad boy up. Nice and warm. I'm actually going to test something to see how much something changes here. Send you the logs to make sure everything is good and smooth. No problem, brother. Just send me the logs, man. Business is really good. The only problem I ran into this week was just trying to get supplies. It's just been, I don't know if you guys have seen it out there or if it's been that way for anybody of you out there, but trying to get supplies lately has just been so difficult. Apparently, one of the ports that do deliveries to the United States and Canada, or that somewhat in that area, literally went on strike. Now, I know the strike is over now, but it was pretty wild to see that they went on strike. I'm just checking something right now. This is burning the crap out of my hands, but I'm hopefully to get the right answer that I'm looking for here. Yep. All right. So what I just did was I measured one of my ruthenium plugs hot, right? And basically it came out to 3.8 kiloohms. So all I had to do was to heat it up with a heat gun to change the resistive output. Well, why does this matter? Well, this is the plug in the new FL5. So if you go to buy plugs for an FL5 and they give you anything other than a Bosch Evo, which is what this is a Bosch Evo plug. This is my understanding that this is the right plug, which also makes sense because the 11th Gen SI uses the Denso coil and uses this exact same spark plug. So, well, why does this matter? You know, what happens when you use the wrong plug? Well, I just showed that this, well, I couldn't exactly show the numbers, which is a little difficult for me to do, but it came out to 3.8 kilo ohm or 3,800 ohms. Now, the Bosch Evo, these are considered a 5 kilo ohm plug, right? And the NGKs and the rutheniums, they're a 5 kilo ohm plug. This is a 6 kilo ohm plug. That is a 20% increase in resistance. Well, what happens if you put a low resistance item in an electrical system that wasn't meant to have that low resistance? You fry it. So now it may not happen for the guys who've tried the Denso coil inside like the Accords and stuff. And the reason being is it's very likely that this could have a longer dwell time. Well, what's dwell time? Dwell time is the amount of time it takes to charge the coil in order to get an ignition event. So it's possible that they can get away with this combination in an FK8, but put this in an FL5 and fry the coil. Put an NGK plug in the FL5 coil and fry it due to the low extra over 1,000 ohms of drop in resistance. So anybody who knows car audio understands that if you put too low of a resistance subwoofer, like a 4 ohm amp, and you put a 2 ohm subwoofer on it, you may not blow it up right away, but it will eventually let go. And once you destroy a secondary winding in here, you might get spark, but it might break up under higher boost, heavier load, under more ignition timing. Yeah, right now, yeah, especially for me. So, let me see, where's my marker? So, we all know, or at least most of us know, that when you go to a higher boost application, we generally have to close the spark plug gap. Well, in a drawing sense, let's kind of like look at it this way. Let's say 10 pounds of boost. So let's say this box is 10 pounds of boost. Right? There's your air density. Let me move this closer because this is just definitely way too far. There's your air density for 10 pounds of boost, right? There's your air density for 20 pounds of boost. Well, the thing is, air is not blank. It's not empty space. So in order for the spark to jump the gap, you have more atoms in the way. So basically, it's almost like when you add more and more boost, it's like having an electrical arc and then taking your hand and putting it right in the middle of it and expecting it to jump straight through your hand to the other side. So that's a representation as to why we turn around and close the spark plug gap, because when you close the gap, it's kind of like doing this. You make it so that you cross less atoms for the spark to jump the gap. So that's why we close the spark plug gap. It's a pretty simple principle, but that's the easiest way I can describe it where everybody can always understand this. So as far as ignition dwell time and charge time, this also depends on respark too. What's respark? Well, sometimes depending on how the system functions in lean burns and other scenarios, you will run into a point where under let me start over. My brain just went in a circle there. You can run into where it won't fully ignite the fuel. So a lot of these systems have a double spark, a secondary ignition trigger, so that it will ignite and ignite again. But this is most often, a lot of times used in respark is used mostly in just simply lean burn mixtures. In higher loads, Additional dwell time can be added, but dwell time is just literally the amount of time to charge. We're talking milliseconds, guys, 1-2 milliseconds. Uh, we can add that charge time. So, but just like anything else, running the whole reason the system shorts out is because when you run a lower resistance, you draw more current, you draw more electricity. The more electricity you draw, the more heat you generate. The more heat you generate over time, the worse electronics get. It's just the nature of the beast. The coils start conducting less as heat increases, and eventually they do just fry. So let me see if I can get this on camera. Stay you. Let me see. All right, now let's see if I can. There. So now that this plug, this is no, that's not the standard resistance 5 kilo ohm. That's a different plug. So this plug is still a bit on the warm side. We got 4.5 kilo ohm. I'll take a one that's just a little, and was run on a dyno for a little bit, well, a little bit longer than a dyno, but this plug is ice cold and got a little bit of carbon buildup on it. Come on, baby, give me some readings here. Oh, there we go. And we got 4.9 kilo ohm. So, which basically is 4,900 ohms. So I'm going to take that same plug and heat it up again and hopefully not burn the hell out of myself trying to get it to read. And where's that Bosch Evo? And the Bosch Evo plug, rated at 6 kilo ohm, comes out at, oh, hold on. Come on. 6.7. So essentially, it's closer to 1,500 to 2,000 ohms of difference. So you can see how that could eventually cause damage when the dwell time is too long and when the ignition is too long. Or not the ignition, when you use the wrong plug, sorry. Very hard to balance that. All right, what's also expensive? What do you mean? What is expensive? You mean the FL5 coils? It's hot to moly. Because you mentioned Pertanian, you said they're expensive. I mean, as far as plugs. Oh, just parts in general. Yeah. Yeah, they can get to be very pricey. So another thing I was going to touch on, I mentioned that I don't have my starter hooked up to my start-stop button. There's a solid reason for that. There's a reason there's a crankshaft on this table too. As soon as I get done heating this up, yikes, that's a little warm. So now that I've got this plug hot, and hopefully I don't burn the stuff out of myself. Look at that, 3.8 kilo ohms. So that means that when I heated this plug up, that's now 3,800 ohms from the heat. So now we're definitely into a territory where about 30% less resistance than the plug that came with the FL5. Now, as far as that goes with ignition and boost and breakup and dwell time, obviously you can add dwell time, like charge the coil longer, but if you add too much dwell time, you'll just burn the coil out. So let me just say something about this comment. I've seen people make 700 on a stock block. You guys need to define stock block. Stock block is literally meaning the block itself is stock, but the pistons and rods don't have to be. So there's a post out there, upper 600s on supposedly on stock motor, but until you can put that same number down on a dyno jet elsewhere, I can't verify that number because different dynos read differently. And depending on how you load a Dynapack, and seriously, depending on how you load it and how the power comes in, because if you surge the power in a dyno jet, in a Dynapack, if you surge the power in a Dynapack, the brake on the Dynapack will grab harder, and that reads that brake grabbing harder as higher horsepower. You can easily surge boost in and create a spike in horsepower number on a Dynapack if you turn around and mess with it the right way. It doesn't take much other than surging in like 3 or 4 pounds of boost right at peak horsepower where it would normally be. You can easily get a nice lump in that area. So I really don't think there's any real 680 wheel horsepower plus FK8s on stock bottom end. I've made 620. But 680 is just absolutely outrageous. That's just, even honestly, I thought 620 was a ticking time bomb when I tuned it. Like there could be, and I'm like, and I was kind of nervous because the torque, and torque is what blows it up. But it's in one piece, man. 10,000 miles later, and the guy was hard on it. So I really don't think much more than 620 tuned very specifically. Like much lower torque, like max torque, 430, 440 is really about as far as I would stretch it if you want it to live. If you want it to live, that's where I'd keep it at. 600, 620 maybe. Going any further than that, just way too much risk. Plus the stock bearing clearances, they're so tight. They are so tight on stock bearing clearances. I can pull this out of there. The other thing is the ring gap is atrociously small on the factory. It's literally less than half of what we would run in a built motor. Hey Chris, I'm glad your car's fixed, man. I'm glad you figured that out, and and I'm glad it made more sense that I told you it was so much better to just do it the way you had it done to get it fixed rather than trying to spend so much money getting it out here. I'm glad that really did save you quite a bit of money. And I'm glad it was something simple. I'm glad it could help you get that, So, all right, let me get this out of here. All right. This, some people do and don't know. This is the thrust washer on an FK8. Now, what this does is keeps the crank from walking around. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you put a crank inside of a block, all right, this area right here, this large flat area here, there's one washer on each side, and Honda only uses half. So most other manufacturers will have a fully circled thrust washer that goes all the way around, but Honda doesn't. So whenever you upgrade your clutch, you're going to put more pressure on these thrust washers, and you can knock them out over time. But there's 2 reasons that this actually 3 reasons this generally happens. All right. And the number one reason for that is the pedal's not adjusted correctly, or you're not running a pedal stop. A twin disc puts 300 to 400 pounds of pressure when you push the twin disc in. The more you push it in, eventually it stops and won't push in any further. And then you literally, at this point, you literally just start using either your slave just literally starts pushing. There's no relief left because a twin disc only moves a little bit to open. If you start pushing and pushing and pushing, it just doesn't go any further. And then you literally just grind this thrust washer right out of the engine. And then the crank moves around. So that's the number one reason. Improper pedal setup. That's the number one reason. The second reason is going to be dry starts. So imagine this. You're only coating on this little piece of soft babbing. This isn't anything. If I were to take this and try to really pry on it, I probably would be able to bend this. I just don't want to ruin a perfectly good thrust washer. In the aftermarket, they're no better than factory. So it really doesn't matter. So this is literally all you have. There's like in the size this way is tiny as well. And yes, there's oil grooves, but this only helps. It's only splash fed. So this doesn't really do you any good if it's just sitting there because the oil does not come up to this level in the oil pan. If it did, you'd have so much windage, your oil would be foaming and blowing out your valve cover because you'd be whipping it around with the crank. So anyway, so as far as now, the other thing is that could help prevent wear because you got the dry starts is you can put like I did. I bypassed my starter so that I don't have to use the clutch. So I put my key on and then I have a separate momentary switch for my starter so that I'm not applying any pressure on this thrust washer during starts with dry with no oil whipping around in the motor. If you're sitting there and for some reason you've got your foot on the clutch pedal and you're just cranking away for some reason, the car won't start or something, and it's been sitting, you can burn this sucker right out real quick. I mean, think about it. 300 to 400 pounds of pressure by pushing on it. And then imagine when you're pushing even further. So, and the last and most, what I think would probably be helpful, but not necessarily all the world the difference, is running a heavier oil. Why would you run a 0W20 when you're running when you're running a twin disc and putting all that pressure on this thrust washer? At the very least, I'd run it, even with bigger turbos, at the very least, you run 10W40. VTC always rattle from dry start. Well, no, not necessarily, because the VTC locks. You're talking about variable cam timing or VTEC. Because if you're talking about variable cam timing, no, it won't rattle. And the reason it won't rattle is because the VTC is in a locked position. There's a pin inside the VTC gear that goes to a full advance or full retard, depending on which gear, and it locks it in place. So it should never rattle on a cold start. VTC, variable cam timing, shouldn't rattle from a dry start. So the FX400 is heavy. It's definitely a heavy clutch. So is the FX350. They're both heavy on the foot. I would say that being though I do have a twin, but I have the upgraded slave, the upgraded slave on my twin is easier to press than an FX400 or FX350. Those two are definitely different. Number 4 main lubricates the thrust washer on top of the splash. Yes, but it still is dry on startup. You still got dry direct pressure. It's not like when you're cranking and spinning a motor and the ignition hasn't occurred yet. It's kind of like when you push the clutch pedal in, right? And you want to turn around and you're starting a car. It's almost, imagine it like this, having like 400 foot-pounds of torque on cranking on your rod bearings. How long would your rod bearings last? You know, even 100 foot-pounds of pressure on cranking on your rod bearings dry. They just burn them right out over time. So FX 350 though will do the job. It kind of has it has more actual pucks on it, and but it's still a heavy clutch pedal either way. Uh, you're looking for an EFR 7670. How about an 8370? How about there? EFR 8370. I've had this and I was going to use it, but guy I asked to do the fab work said, nah, after I said he would. And I purchased it and was stuck with it. Brand new, never used. Had it for fans, God, since after my 660. Is it okay to run 5W30 with upgraded drop-in turbos? It's okay, but I still recommend 10W40. You know, unless you're in a cold climate. Have you had issues with the twin disc? Is that the reason for the twin disc topic? The reason for the twin disc topic is because I'm being blamed for somebody screwing up their thrust washer. And I'm explaining what you need to do so that you don't screw up your thrust washer. So that's why. So I had an issue with an organic disc a long time ago that was warped, and I got all brand new parts from Clutch Masters, and it was going to be my spare. I ordered a second clutch because I knew that it would be months away before I got it back. So to put my car back together, I got another twin disc from Four Piston Racing, slapped that in the car, and it was fine. Sent it to Clutch Masters and had them put brand new discs in a brand new center plate. That's why. And I figured rather than take something that's just full on negative, take something and teach somebody so that they can have a better understanding. The whole point is just to give a better understanding. So here we go. Here we go. See? So, right. So you've been a Honda tech for 20 years, but you ain't been doing twin discs for 20 years. Ugh. Seriously. What do you, I mean, seriously, this is a different world. Twin discs are not factory clutches. Honda tech. See, I knew that would come up. No surprise. Whatever, I'm over it. Talk away. I'm over it. Oh, shit. Well, I guess my styrofoam cup didn't play. See, you guys, you're in the wrong, buddy. You're in the wrong place to bring drama. You really are. So now you need 5 people watching you when you installed it. So let me ask you guys, how many times have you had 5 people watching you install a clutch? You adjusted the pedal numerous times. Why? The story just doesn't make sense. How much do you think the EFR 8370 would make at a built motor TR2 cam, 4-piston ported head, XDI, Wilbur on 2000s? I'd say you'd run out of fuel system more than likely. An 8370 is pretty stout, man. 80 pounds an hour. So it's 80 pounds of flow. Sorry, a minute. So that's about 8. Usually, generally, EFRs are slightly underrated, and you turn around and basically you rate them in pound per minute is your horsepower output. So if a turbo does 80 pounds a minute, you're generally expecting about 800 horsepower. The 8370 is kind of like in between a G3770 and a G3900. It's definitely bigger than a 7670. I don't think a 7670 would maybe make as much as a G3770. But I think that 8370s is somewhere in the middle of those two. Why do you need 5 guys to verify your work? But you just said you had 5 guys that checked it, that were watching you do it. If they didn't verify it, then how do you know you did it right? Again, it just doesn't make sense. I know I don't got to prove anything to him. He's just going to keep going in circles with his own story. Clearly, the Honda tech doesn't understand that half the thrust washer does not hold up well to extreme pressure over time. And then your best part was he said his verification was JSR engines, who he himself on Alex's car knocked the thrust washer out on it when I told them you got a problem because you're getting a cam crank correlation. And I told them there's a problem, and he knocked the thrust washer right out and then wants to go to JSR for some sort of verification. So at the end of the day, that says everything right there. Common areas for boost leaks. Have you heard of them lines for the dump valve leak? Well, I suppose obviously you're meaning a bypass valve or ball valve or depending on what terminology you want to use, recirculation valve. Yeah, it's very common for a pinhole or some type of stretching or ripping of the line when you're swapping a turbo. It's extremely common. And the issue is that if you do a boost leak, since that area is covered and it's a recirculation valve, it won't show in a standard boost leak. It will only show if you take a vacuum pump to the actual bypass valve to see if it opens and closes. So that's one of the big issues. So no news on the bigger XDI pump yet. I have some other things that come to priority over that. And so at this point, I'm not really kind of focusing on that. I'll bring it up later when my car is finished. So, and guys, what's funny is I didn't even, he just started bashing me in the middle of a Facebook group and saying that don't you dare come to Florida and all that other stuff. And then here we are again. He's chasing me. Oh, see, look, here we go. I sold you a bed clutch. Okay. Right. So the whole story, God, here we go again. Right. that worked for that sold a bad clutch that works for months. Sure. Right. And the receipt and the email verification of me sending it to Clutch Masters saying, hey, call me. Your clutch upgrade is done. Here's the invoice. You're sticking up for your friend. I talked to your friend. He said I didn't have any sort of communication with him when the guy never contacted me. Was I supposed to hold his hand? That's funny. This is great. This is actually getting to be a lot of fun. You're sticking up for your friend because he won't open his mouth. He won't open his mouth because I'm not even going to get why. Like, you guys just funny. It's just you always pass the blame. You could never be wrong. All right. Well, if that's at the personal's request, sure. There we go. No problem. There you go. Sorry, man. He's going to run around and try to defend himself all day long. He buried himself in a group earlier, and now he's going to try to run around and save his hide. Um, and the kicker is, he said, and I quote, they got a clutch disc. It was messed up. They overnighted it to Clutch Masters. Clutch Masters sent it back, said put it in, and now it's my fault. I'm running more power than Ivan. So on a daily basis, no. Have I made more? Yes, but he's up there. I can't answer you on how I like the precision so far. So, because I don't have it finished yet, and a 62, 66 would probably have been a slightly better option for what I'm going for. Right, Andy, I agree with you 100%, man. If you adjust a clutch pedal correctly, you shouldn't ruin a thrust washer. And also, just so we'll make this 100% clear, the aftermarket slave will not allow, the aftermarket, so the Clutch Masters master upgrade will not allow enough adjustment with an upgraded slave or a factory slave to where you can even get the pedal right. On Peppo's tunes. Yeah, I kind of really don't like doing that, man. I have different views than he does. I do things differently than he does. I wouldn't do it the way he does it. Well, thank you, HBT Garage. You just can't. I don't know, man. I don't know if you're going which kind of direction. I'm guessing you're. So L15B or FL5. I didn't hurt the guy's car, man. The same guy, man. He tried to. I found this, and this said enough. on the same guy. I found this. It says, interesting to see. Interesting to see you were able to get the car tuned with all the parts you told us were stolen during the shipping process after you filed claims with shipping insurance. That was the same guy who said hurt his car. I give up, man. You just can't. You can't please everybody. Yes, Andy, right. If you have the standard sleigh master cylinder, yeah, you can adjust the snot out of it so it's at the floor. And that's what I did too. Mine's all the way on the floor, man. Like this far off the floor, and the clutch is full engagement. Yeah, and the same. It's just funny how the same guy, the same. It's. You can only do so much, and no matter what you do, you're going to get blamed for something in business. No matter how right you are, because the philosophy of the customer is always right. Unfortunate, and it's unfortunate. Don't get me wrong; it stressed me the hell out. That's for sure. Well, Chris. You know what? I got to say something. I know he didn't say anything to you, but in a tuner's perspective defense, I want to just say this. When we try to say something is wrong, so many times, when we try to give somebody a heads up, so many times, we get blamed saying it's a tuner error. So maybe that's why he didn't say anything. I don't always agree with the way way he chooses to do things, but you know, oh yes, Andy, the clutch master's master. You need to cut the studs in and to get them to fit in. Um, and the pin for the pedal is the wrong size, so you have to modify the pin to fit the factory pin. MHI stage 2 should be it's a nice turbo. Yeah, but he's also on stock fuel system. You know what's funny? Thank you, Alex. Oh God, would you just go away? You are just so unbelievable, bro. Like, do you have anything better to do? You don't see me chasing you. Oh, dude. There we go.